Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is a great space. I had never been in this space. Did you guys been in this space? Really? Yeah, it's beautiful. So I feel lucky to be here. Okay, so Craig really did a great job of explaining to us about phishing and how we can help our employees be a little bit smarter about phishing. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into why what the attackers do actually works. Because they use psychology. They use psychology against us. They use how we operate as human beings against us in order to get us to click. And let's first do a little bit of a dive into why that works. And then we can take a look at how we can actually help ourselves be better as we look at the fishes that come in. And boy, the thing about the punctuation was spot on. Because it's amazing when you start looking at fish and you have to go through and parse a lot of fish, you see that they really have a weird view of punctuation, a lot of these fishers. But what about us? What about us, the people on the other end, and how do we work? We work really effectively. I mean, human beings are amazing. You read a lot about AI, and AI is going to replace us, and my company works in AI and protects AI. But here's the thing, AI is really not going to replace us for a while because it doesn't do what humans can do as well as humans do it. One thing that we do that's amazing is that we filter a whole lot of information. If we were to look at all the pieces of information and data around us at any time, we get overwhelmed. I mean, I feel overwhelmed a lot of the time anyway, and that's with my brain doing all of this filtering so that we can focus on what we need to focus on. And we see this across the entire natural world. One example is with this beautiful little gray-legged goose. So there was some research on the gray-legged goose led by Lorenz, and they were trying to figure out what does this goose do sort of when it's taking care of its young? How does it act? How does it behave? And they realized that it had a very special feature. It would grab an egg to get it back into the nest with its neck. And researchers thought, well, how does it know that that's its own egg? What if we tried some other things? So they tried a fake egg. It worked. The goose went and retrieved it, put it back in its nest. They tried a golf ball. That also worked. The goose was a real trooper. It tried to get a volleyball back into the nest. Wasn't quite able to. But interestingly, it also took one of its predators, one of its that it battles out in the world. It took its egg and tried to put it back in too. So these geese, are they motivated by taking care of the young, or are they motivated by something a little bit deeper? Some of this drive within the goose that says it's kind of ovoid, need to grab it, need to put it back in the nest. And that's what's driving it. It's this need to do something that's built into its DNA. We have that too. And what it's called by psychologists is click-word. And that is a fixed action pattern that we have. And you've experienced this yourself. When you get into the car and you drive somewhere, we've all done this, right? Get into the car, you drive somewhere. You remember half the time you're halfway where you want to go. You don't remember doing that drive, right? Your muscle memory took over. You knew to do that. You knew those right turns. You knew how to get to where you wanted to go. That's the click word. We all have this. It makes us really efficient, but it also means that we are a little bit prey to certain things that persuade us. And Robert Cialdini is a professor of marketing. You might be like, is this a cybersecurity day? We're actually going to talk about marketing. But he's a professor of marketing in University of Arizona, and he came up with these 6 dimensions of persuasion. And they're really interesting because marketers use them on us. So this can help you with marketing too, if you don't want to get marketed at. These 6 dimensions of marketing that work on us to get us to say yes. And what it means in the cybersecurity world is whether they know it or not, the attackers are using these dimensions. Some of them do. If you could see the playbook, I used to work for IBM Security, and we had a lot of research into attackers. I also worked for Microsoft, and we had a lot of research into attackers. And you'd be surprised how much of a business this is for these guys. They are marketing their fish to you just like Microsoft is marketing its products to you. So these dimensions actually work on us when we're clicking on the email, and the attackers know that. So they're using these ways to get us to do things. And the thing about it being a business, I mean, it really is a business. So this was one of the most shocking things that I came across in my career was that at IBM, we realized that one of the criminal gangs we were tracking went really quiet one August. We're like, are they gone? Should we tell the media? We think we got this gang. We finally shut them down. Nope, they came back up in September. We were like, that's weird. It happened the next year, too. I heard somebody laughing. You know what they were doing. They were on vacation. It was really a business. Yeah. Okay, so these dimensions and why we do what we do. And the first one is, so I know that it can be really easy to feel like human beings are terrible, and there are some pretty terrible things going on in the world, but the person next to you, actually, when you're on this very human scale with each other, when we're together as people, we do a lot of really good things. Our innate, drive is very often to help one another. And that's reciprocity. We want to give back. We want to, if you give me something, I want to give you something back. And research proves this out. I love this one. This one, they sent out, I don't know how they got to 578 as the number, but they sent out 578 holiday cards to random people. This was a while ago when they did the research, so I think they literally went into the phone book and found people. Now you just probably use some generator algorithm to tell you who to send it to. But they did that, sent out all these holiday cards. Didn't know these people. Guess what? 20% of the people sent one back. They didn't know these people. They were strangers. But they sent the card back because reciprocity. You send me a card, I'm going to do something nice for you. I'm going to send you a card back. So we as human beings get driven by that, driven to give back. Another thing that really drives us is scarcity. We don't like to run out of things. We don't like when things disappear and we can't have them. So that really gets us, and this gets to scarcity, gets to time-based. We've all seen the ads, right? You know, time is running out. Or how about on the shopping networks? They're like, we only have 50 of these left. They have more than 50. Right? But you get all like, I'm not going to get this. Scarcity, time, it motivates us. And this research I thought was really interesting in that they asked the students which the desirable cookies are, right? And you got sort of a spread around what people might expect, right? Some people like chocolate chips, some people like oatmeal, fine. So they asked them, but then they did this again, and they asked them when there were fewer cookies there. And the rarer the cookie, the more people wanted it. But the most interesting thing was that when a cookie was in abundance and then it became scarce, that was it. That was the cookie people really, really wanted. So seeing something disappear, that scarcity, that act now or you're going to miss out, boy, does that work on us as people. We get very, very driven by it. We also pay attention to authority. Remember back in the day? Doctors would recommend the best cigarettes. I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV. They would also recommend the best cigarettes to smoke. And speaking of Tay, there she is up here, right? No, what does Taylor Swift have? Arguably, okay, I guess on one hand you could say, what does Taylor Swift have to do with miles points and money because she's a musician? But given how well she's earned a whole lot of money past few years, maybe she also is a financial wizard too. But is she the person that we should trust about where we want to bank? Not necessarily, but she's authoritative for some, just like a doctor is authoritative. So that's why these are used on us in marketing, because we tend to, if somebody is in a position of power, we tend to listen to them. Consistency, this is a really interesting one about humans and how we act. We like to be consistent. We like to, continue to do things again and again. Does anybody do something like a Duolingo? You do that for And it's part of the reason, I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, but it's part of the reason that you do it every day.
Oh yeah, I don't want to lose my streak.
Bingo. For anybody that couldn't hear, that's exactly why they do it. So Duolingo rewards you if you do it every day. And I asked this gentleman, does he do it every day? And he said, yeah, I don't want to lose my streak. Boom. That's consistency. That's why these tools ask us. It's the same thing if you work out, right? I actually work out with an app called Aptiv. And this is an actual, badge. Oh, look, you got a daily streak. You're doing it. Because people, we like to be consistent. It gives us a sense of accomplishment. This has also been proven out with research, for example. So in this one, they found out that guests were more likely to hang up their towels for reuse if they had agreed to do that up front when they checked in. And again, it's consistency. I'm going to do something. I'm going to commit to it. I'm actually going to do it. And I know that sometimes we're not always perfect in our consistency, but we are driven by it. So this is something that works on us in general as people. And then liking. When things are being liked, when we like something, when we like someone, we're much more likely to do what they want us to do. It's another reason that Taylor Swift's up there, right? People like Taylor Swift, I'm going to go to Capital One, right? There's a liking aspect too. So there was a raffle experiment where they were trying to get people to buy raffle tickets. And they were more successful at selling the raffle ticket if the person came up and gave them a soda first. So I give you a soda and then try and sell you a raffle ticket. There's a little bit of reciprocity in there because I gave you that soda, right? We're getting coffee now, right? So we're kind of like the reciprocity is staying. But then there's a liking aspect that can be added to that dimension. And in this case, when the soda was brought by somebody who was very amiable and likable and that people connected to, they were much more likely to buy a raffle ticket. So it was just, here's a soda. Their buying the raffle ticket went up because of reciprocity. But if it was, hey, here's Joe, and Joe's your pal, and Joe's going to bring you the soda and have a little chat with you and see how you're doing, then the likelihood of buying the raffle ticket went up even more. So liking, when you like somebody, when you like what's being shared with you, you're much more likely to respond positively. And then our last one here is consensus. And this is a really interesting one. It's that we actually influence each other when we're in a group. Has anybody ever been on jury duty? Yeah, some people are like, oof, yeah. If you're on jury duty and you're in a jury, sometimes you can see, I was on the trial that I was on years and years ago. Everybody had decided to go one way after the trial, and the foreman of the jury actually was able to convince everybody to change their mind and got consensus to go in the other direction. It was really interesting because I thought this is not going to happen. If we've got 11 people who think one thing, they're not all going to think the other. But what happened was that as the foreman started to really talk through her reasoning on why it should be a different verdict, you saw that a couple people went over to the other side, and then eventually everybody had gone over because there is this drive for consensus. There are some people, I don't know, I know a couple people that they really like to be different. So like if everybody says red, they'll say blue. If everybody says, gray, they'll say, purple. But most of us, we kind of go in this consensus with each other because, again, we all have to get along. We're all a group. We only succeed when we work together. So the wisdom of the crowd here is when you see people doing things as other people are doing it. And this research was really interesting. It was around autokinetics. And they shot a beam of light into a corner of a dark room and asked people, is this beam of light moving or not? Now, the beam of light was not moving, but interestingly, we as human beings, the way our eyes work, it appeared to be moving. And then afterwards, they asked everybody, moving or not moving. They asked them to write it down. They got them all in a room. And they said, okay, who voted moving? Who voted not moving? And they realized that the group was sort of normalizing to what the broader group thought. So people were changing their opinion of whether it was moving or not based on what other people said. Now, interestingly, when they then broke that group up and went back and checked them again later, they found out that they had still gone with the group's consensus. So their own view with their own eyes could be overridden by the consensus of the people, of a group. And that's okay. Again, why does this actually helps us as humans? Because when we all can get along and move in a direction and agree on things, we're able to, right? If we were always fighting with each other, we'd never get anywhere. So sometimes we all have to agree and move forward. So consensus is also very powerful. So how does this all come into phishing? And Craig showed you some examples of how this actually drives us ultimately into phishing. But let's think about it with those principles that we just went over. So the first one here, and some of these are actual phish that came. This one the FBI shared. This one came out of MailGuard, which is a security vendor. But this one, it says, please find and close vendor banking instructions for a payment that was supposed to go out in the previous week. So you're late, right? So if you're being motivated here by a little bit of time, right, scarcity, like I was supposed to do it, but also there's a reciprocity element, right? I was supposed to do something last week and I didn't do it. What's that going to do to you? Your click word kind of goes, right? It gets started. It's like, I better get that paid. So they're trying to, I need you to process this immediately. And regards, right? So they're driving that from the person. And they're driving the action. Now, Craig had brought up things like punctuation. And that is a really good thing to look for. But I do want to also caution that some of these fish, you get them a mile away. It's the crazy punctuation. At my company, I have something called a fishbowl, which I would recommend everybody give as a second way to really raise awareness. And what we do in the fishbowls, it's just we use Slack. But if you use Microsoft Teams, for example, or if you use some SMS like WhatsApp, you could make a channel there too, as long as it's secured. And whenever anybody gets a fish, they put it into the fishbowl. And then we all kind of look at it and we comment. We say things like, that's crazy punctuation. Or, why is our CEO constantly asking us to call him about gift cards? Because that seems to be the number one fish that we get is, give me a gift card. But so the fishbowl, by having that there, people are constantly aware. They want to look for the fish. And sometimes, Craig was talking about what if you don't know if it's a fish or not. It's okay. Put it in the fishbowl too. And people can chime in. We actually had somebody that someone else had signed them up for something legitimately. It was their boss, but didn't tell them. So they got the email. They were convinced it was a fish. They put it into the fishbowl, and then their boss that was me. I signed you up. So sometimes it can actually help too when a fish isn't a fish. But the other thing about the fishbowl that people like, in addition to that, it's a great way to have a conversation and to really talk with your peers and your colleagues about the fish that are coming in, is that once a month we have a drawing. And you do get a real gift card, not a fished gift card. You get a real gift card. And that also keeps people sort of alert and aware of, this is something I need to be constantly on the lookout for. And the reason is that you do have to be constantly on the lookout is that some of these fish, they're really easy to figure out and you won't get hooked. Some of these fish are so good. One of my favorite CISOs ever, it was at the old Washington Mutual, if anybody remembers that bank. He then went on to be CISO at eBay. His name is Dave Cullinane. And he said to me once, he said, if I hadn't seen my name at the bottom of that email, I would have thought that it was legitimate. The tip for him was that it said it was written by him, and it wasn't, but it was that good. And some of these fish are that good. So we need to always be alert, always be thinking, was I expecting that? So here, this one is an actual request, the FBI's example, a request from the CEO to the CFO, please go ahead and process this wire transfer payment in the amount of $250,000. You might be going, that's kind of like rich air for a lot of companies. $250,000, like a lot of companies aren't just like paying that all the time. One of the things that these attackers are doing is they are profiling your organization and your business. So they will know if $250,000 is something that you can transfer. Again, back when I was at IBM Security, we had one campaign where they were getting between $1 and $2 million at a time. So it was a transfer for $1 or $2 million. Big companies. They were going after big companies. They knew their vendors, they knew their suppliers, and they knew when they were likely to make big payments like that, so it wouldn't be seen as unusual. So they are studying us, and then they are using these psychological techniques on us. This one again, right? We've got scarcity, COB today. It's got to be out. Get that $250,000 out. The other interesting thing that we've seen recently in phishing attacks is that they're intercepting legitimate emails and then changing information, specifically the routing information. So it is an email you're expecting for a transfer that you expect to go through for a vendor that you've contracted with and you are going to pay. The only thing that's different is the routing information, the routing number for where that's going to go. So don't be manipulated, don't be persuaded by these attackers. Take a time, take a breath, and think about, is this legitimate or not? What about AI? I get this question a lot about phishing and attacks, and are is AI going to change everything? Deep fakes. Have you guys all heard about deep fakes? Yeah, like there's like that account that's like Keanu, and he's doing all this weird karate and stuff. Deepfakes are, in fact, being used in phish. They are being used both on video and audio. And with audio right now, audio technology, especially if you've got your voice out there a lot, it's really easy to make something that sounds very much like you. In this case, we had this woman. She was a victim of a virtual kidnapping scam. She wasn't virtually kidnapped. One of her relatives was virtually kidnapped. And they called them and said, we've got your grandson. If you tell anybody, we will hurt your grandchild, right? So if you're older, your parent, your grandparent, you've got a child or a grandchild that could be at risk, right? That's pretty scary stuff. Someone's saying, and you tell the cops, and that's it. Your child is going to be dead. What can we do about that? Well, here's one thing I would strongly recommend everybody do for their own personal safety, and even for at work, is that get a distress word. And a distress word is the opposite of a safe word, but it's used in a similar concept, is that if you and your family and the people that you work with, if you have a word that indicates that they're actually in distress that only you would know, it's almost like a passcode, then you know it's really them. They're not going to deep fake some secret that you have unless you've told them that secret. So if you get a call saying that your CEO has been kidnapped or that your grandchild has been kidnapped, if that person is talking to you and they don't know what the distress word is, they don't know the way to signal to you that it's really them, it could well be a deep fake. And one of these scams it's virtual kidnapping scams. The other one that's a huge scam that's going on right now. And it's heartbreaking because these kind of prey on those of us that are older. The other ones prey on younger. They send emails to teenagers saying that they've caught them doing things online that they shouldn't have, that they have pictures of them, and that they don't want them. If they tell anybody that they're going to send the whole school pictures of them watching things they shouldn't watch online, or they're going to tell their parents. So the kids get really scared, they can't talk to anybody about it, and then they fall prey to these scams too. So both of these really important with the virtual kidnapping and with targeting the teens too. So it's important to talk to your kids as well. All right, so how do we leverage, again, some of this for good, right? We've heard enough about what the attackers are doing. How do we get back at them? We model the right behavior. That's really the most important thing, is to help people understand security principles. What does your company do? Craig had a great example of it. Don't just get attacked when you're trying to do, when the phishing, you click the wrong link and then you go to this training and it's really boring and you're being told you're terrible because you didn't know it was a fish, right? It just kind of shuts people down. So in security, even you may not have people who can focus on security at your company, but look at principles. Look at create an acceptable use policy. Help your employees understand what's okay and what's not okay, what's expected. They're adults. You hired them to do an important job at your company. So give them a little bit of faith and trust them that if you can explain the principles to them, that they're going to be better able to be defending against these attackers. You can give them something back for a security commitment, or like a once a month from a fishbowl kind of pull, is another way to reward people. And then make sure that your senior management, if your senior management isn't on board and prioritizing security, why would anybody else at the company take it seriously? And I've seen CEOs groan and go like, "Ugh, here's the training." It's like, that's not going to help us with really creating a culture of security. Customer facing, your security team, or you, if you're doing it for your organization, or if you're a micro business and it's you and you're everything, you're the CEO and you're the head of security and you're the head of sales. Think about that we are talking to the people that work for us, that are clicking the links, that are getting the emails. Think about how we can treat them and help train them in a way that's going to be positive for them and not net negative. And also, when you see other employees doing the right things, reward them, call them out. So the person who put the fish in my fishbowl, that it actually came from her manager, but she didn't know that she'd been signed up for something. She actually that month won the fishbowl draw. Because even though it wasn't a fish, she was being security aware and raising that to other employees. So just bring that forward. Social engineering resistant culture, most important thing, make sure that when people do get something that looks suspicious, that they have a way to report it. You can report it through your email provider. There's usually a spam button if you use one of the big ones like Microsoft or Google. You can also incent people to report to something like a bowl. Help to understand, get good training. I think Craig said it all with just don't be punitive. Carrot, use the carrot. Get people, you want to engage them. You want them to be on the side of security, not hating this. And then the last one here is Tim Bedard. I didn't mean to say his last name. Sorry, Tim. Somebody I worked with at IBM went on vacation. And he, by accident, lifted up his laptop, and he started it was the same time chat. We were at IBM at the time. Same time chat with 200 of us. And then he realized what had happened and closed the lid. So now there's 200 of us on the same time chat. We all work for IBM Security, by the way. All of us in the same time chat going, isn't Tim on vacation? Why are we all in this chat? So what did we all immediately think? Because it was our mindset. It was so much our DNA. We all assumed that we had been attacked. And we called the help desk, like pretty much all of us. And they had to send out a special email to us and say, we have found Tim. He is fine. It was a mistake. We are not under attack. And you guys can stop calling the help desk now. But don't be the Tim, but also be a culture where people are so, even though we said, well, only a couple of us need to call a help desk. We're like, no, we're all going to do it. We got to be good security citizens, because it was just so much how we were socialized. And then the last thing to just wrap on is just 3 different things for educating your community and being stronger and more resilient. You heard a lot about multi-factor from Craig. Completely agree with that. And research from Microsoft here, 99.9% of authentication-based attacks, when you're using MFA, use that second factor. You can turn it on if you've got Google, if you've got Microsoft for your provider. It's really easy. You can turn it on. If you haven't turned it on, and that's the one thing you walk away from this day from, do that. And then also, Craig gave a great shout out on password manager, so that's another one. You don't have to remember all those tough passwords. You just let the manager remember it for you. Keep your updates on. You probably got them on your phone, but on your laptops too. Make sure that you have the auto updates, and check and make sure that they're actually updating. Most of the time when there's an update, it's because of security. I mean, sure, there are features and functions, but you're probably going to have to pay more for that. Like your vendor's got some new wonderful version that they want to sell you. But just the regular basic updates that come out, those patches, most of the time, there's some element of security related to them. So make sure that you're up on the latest ones. And then the backups are really important too. Make sure that you have backups and that you can access your backups. If you do get attacked, if you do get ransomed, if you do have information stolen from you, having a good clean backup that you can go back to is critical. And a good approach for this is 3-2-1. So have 3 different versions of it. That could be one on your laptop, one up in the cloud, and maybe one on your storage device if you have a removable storage. So you want to have at least 3. You want to have 2 different methods and 2 different kind of places that they're stored. So it's not just, I've got 3 copies in the cloud. You want to have 2 different ways. And then the one is really important here, which is one of them should be cold or offline. And that's because attackers, if they can get through your own network and onto your laptop and encrypt your data, if you've got network attached storage, if you've got cloud attached storage, they can get into the cloud. If you can get to the cloud, they can get to the cloud. So they can also encrypt your information up in the cloud. So it could be stored at cold. Cold either means it's not accessible to you easily through the cloud, so you might have to turn it on, for example, fire up that VM where it's stored, or it could be an actual physical. If you're a small enough company and you don't have a whole lot of data, especially micro businesses that may have 2-3 people, you can just back it up physically, keep it in a drawer. The main thing to think about is how much time you need to recover, because if that cold storage is 6 months old, it's probably not very useful for you. So you want something that's going to be, if it's once a week, once a day, that you do that backup. So that's really it. Thank you very much for your time. I hope that this gave you a little bit more appreciation for kind of how cool we are as human beings and what drives us and what persuades us and why we do the things we do. The attackers are using that against us to get us to click, to get us to do the thing that they want us. Let's use it for us and for our businesses and for our people to help train them and be better, stronger, and more resilient against attacks. So thank you.